This is Colin O'Keefe here for LXBN TV. Paid family leave is one of the hottest topics in employment law right now, and various states and cities are moving to address the issue. The latest is Washington, D.C. Joining me to discuss the latest out of D.C. is attorney Keith Anderson. He's with Arant Boult, Cummings, and author on their blog, Labor and Employment Insights. Keith, first, can you walk us through the specifics of what DC is tentatively doing?
Sure, Colin. This is called the Universal Paid Leave Act of 2015. It's been presented by the DC City Council. What they're looking at doing is providing 16 weeks of what would be paid, fully paid leave. That's in contrast to the federal FMLA law, which provides 12 weeks of unpaid leave. The payment for employees would be the first $1,000 is paid, and then between $1,000 and $3,000 per week, 50% is paid, and then it's a max of $3,000 per week. So what you're looking at is $3,000 per week, roughly $12,000 per month. So anyone that's making roughly less than $144,000 a year will be looking at being fully paid while they're out. Again, 16 weeks is the max. That can be taken in a lump sum or it can be taken intermittently. And it would be funded by employers in a sort of graded fashion. If an employee on their payroll makes less than $10,000, they don't have to contribute anything, and that kind of works its way up to a maximum. If an employee for a particular employer makes $150,000 a year, then they'd have to contribute, the employer would, 1% of that employee's salary. So the costs would be borne by employers here, and they would be and it would be paid into a fund to be run by the city. Then employees who were on leave for a newborn child, for a sick family member that they're tending to, the qualifying events are defined under the law, would then apply for benefits and receive benefits from the DC City Fund that is, again, funded by employers.
I see. And then, of course, this is just tentative. It's not law yet. But is there anything that employers should do right now to prepare? I mean, what should be on their minds, with this kind of working its way through the system?
Yeah. Well, I think they certainly should be aware of it. And it doesn't take long on the internet to see that there are some strong opinions on both sides of this issue between, workers, employee side, and employers who would have to fund this, and it would be another essential tax on employers. I think employers, number one, they need to be aware of it, need to be aware that it might be coming down the pipeline. And they need to kind of factor that into their budget, looking down the road, and maybe take a look at their employee rosters and what the incomes of their rosters are, and to see how much they would have to be paying into this fund. So really just taking a holistic approach and looking, okay, what does my employee structure look like? What would I have to be paying in to this fund? And then almost planning ahead, seeing, look, if we're looking at a particular employee being gone for up to 4 months, what's our plan B? What's our how are we going to improvise during that time frame? You look at the FMLA 12 weeks unpaid leave. Employees many times got that leave, but if it's unpaid, they certainly had an incentive to return back to work to resume being paid. If we're looking at up to 16 weeks of fully paid leave, the chances are much more likely that particular employee is going to take that full 16 weeks. So I think employers need to be aware of it. It needs to be part of their budget. They need to take a look at their employee rosters and then just start to tentatively make plans for how it would be implemented, and also how it would be communicated to their employees, because the law mentions that as well. They've got to educate employees on the availability of this leave.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then, of course, if it isn't the DC law, it could be, any number of others. This is, again, like I mentioned, one of the biggest topics in employment law right now, so it certainly should be on the radar of employers everywhere. Once again, that was Keith Anderson of Arant Boult Cummings. For more of his insight on this topic, be sure to visit BABC-employmentlawinsights.com. Thank you for joining me today, Keith.
Thank you, Colin. Appreciate it.